Hello everyone, STheHero here. In this video, I'll be going over the best items for every AD carry for the upcoming set 14. Not every unit is going to be meta from the start, but hopefully each unit will eventually have its time to shine, so I'm still going to cover them all. All of this info can be found on my site, tftanomalies.com, under the set 14 section, which I'll constantly update throughout the set. Because I'm a vigorous planner and theory crafter, I always have a good understanding of the upcoming meta trends, and often find things before anyone else. So, if you want to be ahead of the curve, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. It really helps out a lot. Okay, so Kindred's ability. She's a Nitro Rapid Fire Marksman. She connects Marksman and Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire is an attack speed trait, Marksman is an AD trait. So depending on how she is built, she has a little bit of one. Her spell works similar to Set 13 Tristana, where she does a lot of base damage, and then if she overkills, it bounces to the nearest enemy. She doesn't have a stacking AD passive. All in all, her effectiveness at this isn't actually that high. However, you want her to cast to do as much damage as possible, pretty much. So I think the best case would be to do either invest in crits or invest in damage. You want basically 3 max damage, but whatever you can manage to get. Probably something like this, but that's like a little hard to build with 4 swords. So something like this, which has I think 1 of each components, or 2 of each, like 2 swords, 2 bows, 2 gloves. Kog'Maw is a Boombot Rapid Fire. Boombot, what it does is it scales with total damage done, regardless of how he does it. His ability gives him attack speed and bonus on-hit damage. In order to maximally synergize with his traits, I think you're gonna want to have at least one of his traits active, or both of his traits activated at least once. So at least 2 Boombot and at least 2 Rapid Fire. I've been kind of leaning more towards double Ginsu's, but I don't actually know if it's needed. I think having something like raw damage kind of contributes a lot, because whatever gets him to the Boombot threshold of firing the rocket is kind of best, and then his on-hit scales really well with AD, specifically. You can build crits here too, but it's not needed. I think best in slot would probably be something like this, which is just a standard AD attack battle attacker. Hurricane in this instance doesn't synergize with his ability in the sense that it doesn't apply the on-hit damage. It does synergize with having more attack speed, but I think what Boombot, or what Runaan's is doing here, is contributing to Boombot, because this damage to a secondary target, even though it's not going to the primary targets, it's still contributing to the total damage done. So the total damage done will make him fire more rockets, which would subsequently increase his single target damage. So I do think Runaan's is pretty useful to have on him. So all in all, his best in slot would probably look something like this. Jhin has been underpowered for most of the PvE cycle, but I think now he's probably in a good spot. He might even be strong. His spell fires a grenade. It bounces twice and then back to the original targets. So it hits 4 total times. It also sunders, but it does good amount of damage or whatever. He's a caster, so you just want to play around that. His traits are Excellent Attack, which doesn't contribute too much to damage, Marksman, which is an AD trait, and Dynamo, which is a mana generation trait. Jhin as primary carry in Dynamo is not very likely, but as a Marksman, we see a lot of play as a supporting unit, maybe as a primary carry. What Jhin has, which is really good for him, is he has access to this extra attack item. So this is the contribution of extra attack to his damage, which is this item, Pulse Stabilizer, which is essentially an Infinity Edge with the Collector passive. It is now balanced, these numbers aren't updated, but it now has 35 as 80. So now it literally is an Infinity Edge with Collector passive. And then what people are doing is, and it's kind of weird that people aren't doing this on other units, but people are building Pulse Stabilizer and IE together, which I think is correct on a unit with Marksman traits AD, capitalizing on just having as much damage as possible. He gets a little bit of spell crit damage from having both of these together. It's baffling to me that people don't realize that this is the same thing. This is literally the same thing, except it doesn't have the Collector passive. Yet people are perfectly comfortable building this. But regardless, yeah, I think this is, for a primary carry Jhin, this would be the correct build. For a not primary carry Jhin, he's a really good not really good. He's a good anti-heal spreader, so you can build like a red buff on him. But this isn't for like secondary. Now that he actually has primary carry potential, his best in slot would look something like this. Vayne is an Animal Squad Slayer. Slayer contributes to a lot of AD. It gives her Omnivamp and it gives her AD. I've finally convinced people that this unit is good. And yeah, so her ability rapidly fires 3 attacks and they deal bonus 2 damage. But they also count as attacks, so they contribute to Ginsu's and they contribute to on-hit effects. So I think best in slot would look something like this. Or Ginsu's, it stacks in her ability, so she can get to attack really fast. Her base attack speed is also pretty good, so she can get to max attack speed reliably. And then with Slayer, she can sustain and then have a lot of AD already. And then Hurricane also procs during her ult, so you can have a good amount of supplemental DPS for that. If not Hurricane, it would probably be something like Gunblade, pre-nerf, or like Infinity Edge or something like that. But I think Hurricane is a really underrated item, and then people build this because the stats say it's good, but I built it because I know that her ability procs it 3 times, and that's good enough for me. Draven is an interesting one because I think he's been getting buffed, but I don't think he was ever weak. Like, I don't think there's a single point in time where Draven was weak, but he's gotten buffed, like, I think twice. Draven is a Cypher Rapid Fire. Cypher gives him AD, Rapid Fire gives him attack speed. Sometimes he'll play around both, but it doesn't really change his items that much. He's an AD caster. He's a lot of, like, most of his damage is in his spell. His spell actually is, like, really strong, and thus has a high mana cost. I think Shojin's kind of mandatory on him, because it takes him from a 12 auto cast to an 8 auto cast. And then, because he's a caster, and then because there's a lot of value, I think, like, Infinity Edge is good, and then something like Last Whisper is probably best. If you already have Shred, maybe something like this. But I think in most comps that he's played, it's usually better to have, like, you're not necessarily playing around having a lot of Shred, and he can Shred for himself pretty valuably because he's going to hit a lot of units, and he hits them twice, so it actually works out fine. There can be arguments for having, like, Red buff or something on him, but I would say, like, I think Last Whisper contributes a bit more damage because it gives him crit and AD, while this has, like, damage amp and more attack speed, but Rapid Fire gives him attack speed, so, like, but it's something like that. It's Shojin Infinity Edge +1, or 1 can be, like, Giant Slayer, Red buff, Last Whisper, Redbreaker, Deathblade. Like, Jinx is a very interesting one because I haven't played enough of her. I don't think anyone's played enough of her. I think Jinx is probably the unit most likely to be slapped on going into the live patch. I mean, before it was Fiddlesticks, but I actually played that one and I managed to convince people it was broken, and then suddenly it was the most broken thing of the set. So yeah, I saved everyone on that one, but Jinx I actually haven't played enough. So if Jinx turns out to be broken, I don't know, we're fucked. And I think Jinx is actually pretty strong, so but I need to play her more. But she has a 50 mana cost. Her ability fires rockets, similar to, like, I think what it was set. I think set 9 Jinx was, yeah, Zon Jinx. But and then each time she casts, she fires an additional rocket, which I think is something that people don't know that she can do. She's a caster, primarily, so I think having Shojin is pretty good on her. I think the part that I need to explore is whether Shojin Ginsu is correct on her, because I don't know if this stacking of her ult will get her to will contribute more damage to her than not doing this. Both of her traits give her AD. Street Demon and Marksman give a lot of AD, so she doesn't need more AD. Her last item would either be, like, a multiplier, like Infinity Edge. There might be an argument for, like, something like this, but I need to play Jinx more, because this low-key might be a Syndra situation. Stat 12 Syndra situation. There could be an argument for this. If Ginsu turns out to be, like, terrible, could be something like this, or just like this. Like, I think the most standard is something like this. I'm just not sure if it's correct. But I will probably separately update her things. Senna is a very interesting one. The Vindicore Slayer. Her gimmick is that she has really high base AD, but she has really low base attack speed. And then her her auto attacks passively cleave in an AoE, like a 1 hex AoE around the primary target for like 40% damage. How Senna's to be built is like a bit up in the air. I'm of the opinion that she should just be built for full crits, maximize on her damage. So the way that Senna works is that her cleave like hits in an AoE, so she's hitting a lot of units at the same time. Red buff, well, I thought that would be something that worked. I thought that she would be a good applier of anti-heal because her cleave would apply red buff, but it does not do that. But it does apply shred, or it applies thunder, and it applies, or it doesn't apply, but it works with guard breaker, where if any of the things that she hits has a shield, she gets the bonus damage amp. So there's a lot of synergy with that. And then I think Senna's really good with Infinity Edge. Even though she doesn't cast very often, one, when she casts, she's going to like one-shot the things that she's casting on, but two, her auto attacks do crits and are a lot of damage. So if you're just playing around the auto attacks, making her autos crit contributes a lot of damage. Because, okay, Slayer gives her a lot of AD, and Divine Core gives her a lot of AD. So she's going to have a lot of AD, so it's just a matter of what makes her do the most damage. But for now, I'll leave it at this. I'm pretty sure the stats say this is the best, even though no one plays her like this. But, I mean, if people could be convinced of Vayne and TF and Annie, surely people will eventually stop building Ginsus on her. Because Senna needs, like, triple Ginsus to compare with, like, Vayne's, like, one Ginsu. So, like, it's not even worth it. So I think with really intelligent positioning, you can do a lot with Senna. I think I'm not gonna like go into too much detail here, but basically the way her spell and her autos can be treated, you can kind of act like set 12 Arcana Ari with the positioning where you wrap around the primary tank and then she cleaves all of them, and her ability will just one-shot all of them like Ari's ult did. I think that's something that people need to play more. Aphelios is a Golden Ox marksman 80 Golden Ox damage amp. So this Aphelios is like Targon Aphelios from set 9, except it's just worse in every way because his chakrams aren't infinite and don't heal him and do less damage. But regardless, he's still pretty good. Aphelios is a good Ginsu's user. He was originally one of these. With the Gunblade nerf, he might not be one of these anymore. It might be something like this, or maybe he just goes this. It's hard to gauge how much Gunblade nerf impacts his ability to sustain. Infinity Edge is a good like complement to the marksman AD and to the damage amp, so it would be something like this, and then it could be like this, like with Last Whisper or like Giant Slayer. It is Ginsu's +2 pretty much. That's his core. Like even this is good. I'm just gonna put the standard thing, and then if it gets updated later, it gets updated later. Misfortune is a Syndicate Dynamo. Her spell is the same as set 8 Misfortune. She just Misfortune ults and hits a bunch of units with waves of bullets and does a lot of damage. She has a really high mana cost, but her cast is really strong, so it's fine. Syndicates gives her a little bit of damage amp, and it upgrades her ability to fire more bullets, which is actually pretty impactful. It fires 4 more waves, so that's a 50% damage increase over the duration of her. It's over 2 seconds, so like you're firing like 4 more waves over those 2 seconds, so you're going from 8 to 12, which is literally a 50% damage increase. So that's actually huge. And then Dynamo is a mana generation trait. MF really needs it, but she still needs a mana item because her mana cost is really high. You can kind of go without a mana item sometimes if like you just don't have the items for it. I think the priority is to have like damage onto her ult, but usually you want to prioritize the Shojin anyway. I think in comps where MF is not the primary carry, you can go without Shojin, but primary carry MF probably needs it. Best thought would probably be something like this. Last Whisper is really good on her because the first wave will apply the Sunder to everyone, and then all the extra waves will have the armor reduced damage. So you don't really need like an Ebon Shroud in this comp, or when playing with MF, because MF supports herself really well with spreading Sunder armor reduction. Xayah is probably the most misunderstood unit. I don't think people realize how her spell works. I don't think that matters too much for her itemization, but I do want to highlight how her spell works. So Xayah has a 75 mana cost, which makes her a perfect Shojin candidate because she casts every 5 autos. But okay, so her ability impales feathers into her current target, and when the target dies, the feathers explode and they spread to like nearby like enemies. So basically, she has a single target damage with each of these feathers, but she needs the target to die to fully utilize her ability damage. The more that she casts, the more feathers she's gonna embed, but also if you give her more damage, the more damage the feathers do. Pretty much the thing that is like needed from her for her is that she needs a strong single damage source next to her to help her spread her feathers. So she pairs really well with Aphelios, who is exactly that. But she also pairs well with Vayne. I think in Anima Squad, what people don't respect enough is that Vayne is really good for helping Xayah spread her feathers because Vayne is a single target damage source as well. As for her itemization, people usually go for something like this. Xayah isn't actually the best. Like, she's like okay at spreading Last Whisper once the target dies, but she doesn't amplify. Okay, actually, it works in the same way as MS, so it's not bad. So I think this build is fine. However, there might be a world similar to Jinx where you might want to make her cast more. The other thing is that being ability centric, I think unlike Jinx, where she has very clear attack speed synergy, there might be a world where you go like this, similar to Jhin, just to capitalize on the fact that Marksman gives a shit ton of AD. I don't know why this trait gives so much AD, so there might be a world where double IE Xayah is correct. In any 4 marksman comp, this might be correct, but that needs more testing. For now, I think Last Whisper is perfectly suited because it gives her a good amount of crit chance. When she hits the target once, the next 5 feathers will get the damage reduction, or the damage increase from armor reduction, so it's pretty good. So generally, this is probably like the easiest to understand the best in slots. However, it is possible that there is something better. Zeri is, I mean, 1, like, disgusting, but 2, she's a really fun unit. She's Exo Attack Rapid Fire. Her spell summons an echo that basically is a copy of her that also auto attacks. It lasts 5 seconds. Her attacks deal reduced damage, and they scale like differently with her attack speed and stuff. They don't apply on hits, so there's no like hurricane stuff. But she scales really well with attack speed, because specifically with Ginsu's, because the more attack speed she has, the more she casts, and the more she casts, the more damage she does. So having like this is like her spells like separately a multiplier of damage. So Ginsu's is pretty good on her. In some variants of comps, she was just one of these double Ginsu's Gunblade users. With Gunblade being nerfed, I'm not really sure if that's necessary, but she has really good synergy with Ginsu's. Another thing to bring up is that her extra attack item is also really, really good on her. This gives her 80 attack speed. Her attacks store charges at 4 charges. The next attack does 15% of the target's max health and reduces their armor by 10. The clones don't stack this, but because Zeri has really good synergy with Ginsu's, she's still really good with this because Ginsu's has synergy with this. I think her new BIS might be something like this, depending on how much the Gunblade nerfs hurt her. Apart from that, her generally accepted best in slot is Ginsu's Flux Capacitor Gunblade, because this gives her a ton of damage. The Flux Capacitor lets her get through tanks if she would be stuck on it, and the Gunblade heals her frontline. Zeri's really good in stall clumps because of the way, like, she wants to play around Ginsu's and she like has the means to do everything. So Gunblade helps her heal what was normally a 6 Bastion comp, and Bastions scale really well with Gunblade because they have a lot of resistances, which makes healing more valuable on them. She's also a rapid fire. Generally, you just want Ginsu's plus 2 items. If you see Flux Capacitor on your exo attack item, you can just force Zeri and it'll be pretty good. And then the last slots, if Gunblade turns out to be terrible now, it would just be either like another Ginsu's or some other damage amplifier. Infinity Edge would be good because it makes her clones, crit, Giant Slayer, Last Whisper, just plus 1 item. Samira is a Street Demon amp. Street Demon gives her AD. Amp, what it does is it makes her ults do more damage. So kind of similar to the Syndicate bonus of Misfortune. With more amp, her ult will fire more bullets and thus increase her damage by a smaller percentage. Each amp will contribute, so it's a 25% damage increase per amp, so it's like not like bad, but it's not a huge deal. Her ability, like, she's just like AoE spreading damage. During her cast, she's unstoppable and has Omnivamp. She's an AD caster. You can either build Shojin on her or not. I don't know. I've kind of liked the feel of just not doing that and just all-inning on her damage and then hoping that she just one-shots once you cast. Because whereas MF's ult can be blocked by tanks, Samira jumps the backline, so she can just one-shot the backline. So if you just all in on damage, that might be more valuable because she can just kill in the first ult. So I think her best in slot is just full crits, max damage. And then Urgot is the last one. He's a Boombot Executioner. He's more often played as the capstone for Executioner than for Boombot, because vertical Boombot's a little tough to play. But he has a lot of good qualities. He is generally considered to be a supporting unit. I think as a primary carry, he's pretty slow, but he's really, really valuable in the fact that he can execute low health units when he has his mana cost. He can generate gold and items when he kills them. He has a lot of supporting damage, I think. Okay, his spell's like really complicated, but it's not like... Basically, this guy has it all. I don't know if all makes him a primary carry or a secondary carry, but he is definitely very good. And he scales with a lot of things. Executioner gives him crit chance and damage, so yeah. As for what his best in slot is, it's kind of like a bit of everything. His attack speed from his cast gives him synergy with like attack speed, so he can scale well with Ginsu's. Because he has a really high attack speed, he also has synergy with Runons, because he just procs this really quickly. Because he's an executioner, he has synergy with any other crit items. His ability also gives him rockets that fire and hit a bunch of things, so he's really good with spreading this. Last Whisper, Guard Breaker, Red Buff. You can kind of give him literally any damage items and he's good, because his spell literally has everything. And then the things that his spell doesn't have, his traits got him. So literally any damage items can go onto Urgot, like any AD damage items. Deathblade, Giant Slayer, Gunblade's probably not bad. He probably doesn't need a mana item, so I don't think you need like Shojin or anything like that. But any, like literally any item that would go into a primary AD carry would be good. Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, Hurricane, Guardbreaker, QSS, and the likes. So yeah, just slap whatever you have onto him, and he's got you.